Winsenburg on the weekend.
Right now, I'm really thrilled to have with me Stan Berenstain. He is the author of the Berenstain Bear books. Mr. Berenstain, thanks so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
You have sold over 200 million copies of your books.
Yeah, well, that's correct. It sounds crazy, but it's true.
And one of the best-selling authors now, in the children's category. Everybody knows you. Everybody knows the Berenstain Bears, and you've had a TV show, and of course you had McDonald's toys, and you've expanded now into books for slightly older kids as well. Tell us about your background and how you got into all this.
Well, Jan, who is my full partner in this project, and we both do both parts, we both write, we both draw. We began by drawing. We met in art school before World War II, way back when, and became good buddies and got married after the war, and we wanted to work together, and so we decided to go into the book business.
And was that what you did, like, when you first got married?
No, actually, we were magazine cartoonists. You could sell cartoons by mail, and that seemed like a good thing to do. It took us about a year to break into the big time, but we did break into what were then the major magazines, the Saturday Evening Post, Flyers. And it wasn't until we became parents that we became interested in children's books.
Okay, so after you had your kids, then you were interested in children's books, and what was the first one that you created?
The first children's book was called The Big Honey Hunt.
Oh, yeah.
It was published in 1962, and the editor of that book was a very famous author named Dr. Seuss.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, his real name is Tig Geisel, and he happened to be the editor-in-chief of the division of Random House called Beginner Books. He'd done The Cat in the Hat, and it was a great sensation. So we figured we liked Dr. Seuss books. Our son did very much. So we took a project up to see Ted, and he tore it apart 9 ways till Sunday. He put us through the paces. I think we did 7 versions before we got it right. And we hadn't worked for children before, and it's quite different from working, in the grown-up market. But we finally got it done, and he liked it, and he said, well, what are you going to do next? And Jan or I said, well, we'd like to make this a series, have a whole series about the Berenstain Bears. Of course, they weren't called the Berenstain Bears then. They were just bears.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, that's the worst thing you could possibly do. Do something as different from bears as you possibly can. If you try to do a series, it'll be a millstone around your neck. It'll drive you crazy. So we figured, well, okay, he's a smart guy. So we did a book about a penguin, which is pretty different from bears. And he looked at the book, and he said, well, this is pretty interesting. This was a few months later. He says, and it's different from bears, but I'll tell you what. He says, the salesmen have your first book about the bears out on the road now, and it's selling very well. Have you ever considered doing a whole series about these bears? It's almost like a Hollywood story, but it's exactly what happened.
Now, did I hear you say correctly that you both write and draw these?
We both do both, yes.
How do you do that?
Well, in the beginning it was kind of catch as catch can, but we've done it for so long that there's a kind of a division of labor now that makes sense.
Well, I mean, do you say that Stan takes pages 10 through 12 and Jan takes pages 12?
No, that's one way. No, in the books what happens is we both work on thinking of the story. If you don't have a good story, a good title, you may as well not do the book. So we work on the story first, and we work on that together, sitting across the table, hatching ideas, criticizing, events, thinking of the beginning, the middle, and the end. But then once the thing is written, we send it to our publisher, our editor, and normally they say fine. They might change it, they might fix the spelling or put a few periods in where we missed them. But then the division sets in. I do the first rough version. And it's pretty rough, but it locates all the speeches, all the words, and then Jan takes over my rough version. And she puts it on artboard in very fine pencil. She draws every hair, every fingernail in place. And then I ink it with a pen, and then we share the coloring job. It takes about, to do a 32-page book like the paperbacks that we do called first-time books that are so popular, it takes about almost 3 months to do the art. Wow. It's a very, very painstaking process.
And, of course, the big news is that you have a brand-new baby as part of the Berenstain Bears family. You have a third child that was just born.
That's right. Poor Mama Bear never knew what hit her.
That's right. I was very shocked because we just did kind of... And I believe in the very beginning, you just had the baby boy bear.
It was just small bear. That's That's right.
Right, and then you added the daughter.
Yep.
But I was shocked to see you had a third child after all these years.
Well, I was shocked when my publisher called up and said, "Hey, can Mama have another baby?" So I said, "Let me check."
So the latest book is called The Birds, the Bees, and the Berenstain Bears?
That's the run-up to the process. That's about when Sister Bear recognizes that Mama's lap is getting smaller.
Right. And then
which is what happened with our first kid.
That's right.
He said, "Hey, Mom, where's your lap?" You know.
And then the new one that'll come out in August will be the Berenstain Bears.
That will be about the
baby
itself.
makes
the baby,
five.
The prize-winning name we had a contest is Honey Bear. There were, more than 100 submissions of that name, but the rules had it that, that they would do a drawing once they decided on the name.
Oh, that's great.
We're pleased with the name. It sort of goes with the simple kinds of names we use.
It's Winsenberg on the Weekend on News Radio 1040 WHO. Make sure to visit the Berenstain Bear website. It's just simply berenstainbears.com, and they've got all sorts of fun activities for kids and some fun pages to view, so make sure you check out their website. And then, of course, the books that are coming out. The newest one in the chapter book series is called The Berenstain Bears and No Guns Allowed. And boy, have the subject areas really changed over the years from the Berenstain Bear perspective. They've sure gotten serious, haven't they?
Well, this book's unusual in one particular way. Our publisher asked us to do this book. The only book that they've ever come to us and say, "Hey, how about a book on such and such a subject?" And when they proposed it, I said, "Oh, you've got to be kidding. That's such a controversial subject." They said, "Well, there's nothing controversial about you shouldn't have guns in elementary school and you shouldn't shoot the other students and shoot the teachers." And I said, "Well, that's true. Let's think about it." And we came up with a story that explores that particular thing. Now, we don't even have real guns in the story. We have realistic-looking toy guns.
Right.
But even they make the point that guns in school can cause an awful lot of trouble.
So times have really changed, haven't they, with your audience, your readers?
That's true. Well, the chapter books have changed it. We've done subject with the chapter books that we might not otherwise have done. We've done a book called The Female Fullback, which is a kind of book about feminism.
Right.
We did one about disabled children, which is not something you would normally do with a very young book.
Right. Important topics covered by Stan Berenstain and the Berenstain Bear books. The latest one, No Guns Allowed, and Baby Makes Five, coming out in August. Thanks for being with us, Mr. Berenstain, on WHO.